Okay, hello everybody. This is the Bean Paths Tech Office Hours workshop for September. Thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. Um, I'm sitting here, I'm really excited about today's presentation, and I hope that you are as well. So, in case you don't know, this might be your first time as someone who is tuning in to the Bean Path. So first of all, I'm Nashley Cephas, Dr. Nashley Cephas. I am founder of the Bean Path, and we have an entire team of people that work really hard to put on some content for you all to help expose people to technology. And what we do is before COVID, of course, we did these tech office hours in person at the local libraries. We're based in Jackson, Mississippi. But since then, we've had the opportunity to go virtual and live in order to reach and have access to many more people. And so I'm really excited. And I thank you all for tuning in. We're also live on Facebook right now. So share with your friends, share the link and everything. We are excited to have a speaker today. And don't worry if you are tuning in, you won't be able to catch everything today. This will be recorded. No pressure, Rohit, but this will be recorded. So we'll have this posted on our website so that you can see and tune in. Um, I think if you were to take a look at our website, you'll be able to see a couple of our other workshops that we posted earlier this year, including one that we've done for WordPress. We've done one for our Appy Hours, what we call for people to help teach you how to create apps, both with and without code. So two very engaging presentations there to help expose you to what that looks like. We've also done workshops pertaining to COVID and how do we transition during this time in terms of going virtual on everything. And so I think it's important to, consider that and to take in account that, things are different now. But fortunately, technology allows us to still continue to, be great, to continue to do the things that we really want to do. And so before we go any further, I do want to say we have on our website all kinds of merch. If you want to go check it out, we got t-shirts. I'm actually sporting the classic Bean Path orange tee today. And we have lots of other things on the website as well, including bags and mugs and lots of other t-shirts and clothing. We have a signature shirt. The Bean Path made a techie out of me. So feel free to take a look at that one as well. And so I think I've done all the things that I'm supposed to do as far as, ramping up. So I'm excited. Hope you all. I am here to introduce our speaker, which he probably will introduce a lot more about himself. But this is Mr. Rohit Sharma, and he is a very a great friend of the Bean Path. He's volunteered with us. And we really appreciate him and all the work he's done for us. He is a senior and lead UI engineer, user interface. And so he'll talk a little bit more about that. Feel free if you have questions. I just want to say, if you have any questions, this is a live webinar. So you can pop your questions into the Q&A if you're logged in. Also, if you have any other questions, feel free to chat about it. But we appreciate if you put your questions in the Q&A in the Zoom. And if not, you have questions on Facebook, we'll also be combing through that platform as well to make sure that, we're capturing your questions and getting them answered. And so without further ado, I am going to hand it over to our speaker today. And Rohit's gonna come in and talk to us today about websites versus web apps. So thank you so much, and I'll put myself on mute and let you have it.
All right, thank you, Nashley. Hey everybody, I am going to be talking about websites and web apps today, and kind of like where do you draw the line between those. Let me go ahead and get my screen going here. Okay, so yeah, so websites and web apps, kind of what are the differences? Why would you want to choose one over the other? And basically, where do you draw the line? A little bit about myself. I am Rohit Sharma. I'm a front-end engineer based here in Jackson, where I've lived my whole life pretty much. and I work at a company called School Status, where I help build our application, which serves as a platform for educators to help them connect with student contacts. So basically, to keep teachers in contact with students' parents and keep track of student data. And I've been there since 2017, and so right now I lead a very small team of two other people, and um, yeah, so that's what I've been doing. And I included this little tidbit that I have a BA in English from Mississippi State, because just I like to let people know that you don't have to have a computer science degree to get into this field. You can definitely teach yourself, so don't ever let that um, feel like a limiting factor if this is something you want to get into. Um, but yeah, besides that, let's go ahead and get started. So the first web page. Let me open this up and see what this looks like. Oh, okay. So here we have the very first web page that was ever created. It was made by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who is a computer scientist. And as you can see, there is not a whole lot going on except for text right here. We have all this text. We have a bunch of links. And so we can visit. Oh, and by the way, if you can't see my screen anymore, someone please let me know. So you can visit these links. So you can visit this link, Hypermedia. It takes you to this page. What is .html? So and this page explains what is hypertext. Hypertext is text which is not constrained to be linear, blah, blah, blah. You can go back. You can visit any of these other links here. But it's a little underwhelming, right? That's all it is, just information, which is fine. Um, but yeah, so you just click around, you go to all these different pages, and that's all you get. So what would we call this? Well, we would call it a static site. Let me get my keynote back up. Having some technical difficulties. Oh. Can y'all still see my screen?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, I don't know why this didn't happen when I was practicing before.
You know,
Okay,
that's how technology works, right?
yeah, can you see my my slides now?
I see it's a white slide. It's a blank white slide.
Let me see. Shouldn't be blank.
There you go.
Okay, so let me hit play again. Okay, so now we see the slide, static websites.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, thanks, Nashley. All right, so we saw that website, the very first web page ever created by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who also invented the World Wide Web. And it's a static website, so that means it's primarily going to be informative. You, the audience, are just a viewer. You're viewing, and the goal of static websites is usually to convey some kind of information. Interaction's very low on the user's, on the viewer's part. You're mostly, clicking around on links, going to different pages, and each page serves to tell you a little bit about a certain thing. So you might have like a one page that does, gives information about one thing. Another page might be like, about me or something like that, like a little biography or something. And it's one-way communication. The content on the website isn't really changed or determined by the viewer. you're just getting what the person coded up, and it stays the same basically. So here's a little diagram that I didn't make this diagram. I got it off of adobe.com. I got the link down there. But basically what happens when you go to a website, is your web browser makes a request to the web server, and then the web server says, okay, well, this person just requested the About Me page, and that points to a file called, let's say, aboutme.html. So now I need to get that file from the server and pass it back to this person who wants to see it. And so once that happens, the browser will parse that HTML file, and then it'll say, okay, well, this is what I'm getting back. I need to render this and show it to the viewer. I need to show that page to the viewer. And so I'm going to try to open up this very simple little demo. Okay, now it should be showing my my web browser. Is it showing Chrome, or is it still showing my slides?
It is showing Chrome.
Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, so now I'm using this website here called jsfiddle.net, and on here you can enter in some HTML, some CSS, and some JavaScript, and then basically you can have it run right in this white box right in here. So it's really good for demoing like I'm attempting to do right now. So here we have some HTML, and HTML, I'm not going to go through how to write it really, but it stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it is the presentation layer of a website. So we have these things called tags. We have an HTML tag, we have a body tag. HTML tag opens, HTML tag closes. Body tag opens, body tag closes. All right, so but as you can see, we have a very, very blank page here. So why not add something? Why not add a P tag, which stands for paragraph? And then we're gonna say, let's say, hey everyone. Okay, cool. Now our web page would literally just say, hey everyone. But what if we want to make it look a little bit different? I'm not gonna say make it look nicer, because I don't think I'm about to achieve that, but let's say we want to make it look a little different. And so we can say, okay, I want to take that paragraph tag, or any paragraph tag here, and I want to change its color to, let's do tomato, which is going to be red. Okay, so now we've added some CSS. We have some HTML here, which is the presentation layer of our web page. Then we added some CSS, which is the styling of it. Okay, great. That's cool. So now we can say, okay, this is the content I want to show, and this is how I want that content to look. But how do we get some more interactivity in there? Well, so we have the presentation, we have the styling, and now for the interactivity, the other piece would be JavaScript. So let's say I want to do something like change the background color of this page after, let's say, 2 seconds. And with JavaScript, I could do that. I could say, hey, after 2 seconds, let's take the body tag and change it to black. Okay, cool. So now we have presentation, we have styling, and then we have this JavaScript that lets us change things that to make them like they weren't before. And what JavaScript is it's a full-fledged, it's an actual programming language. It's a programming language for the web. And so, you know, we can do that. What happens when you take that from this and you crank it up to like 100? Well, we can come back to that. Let me switch back. This is always so much easier when I'm practicing. Give me 1 second to get my slides back up.
Yeah, no worries. JSfiddle.net. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh yeah, no, it's really nifty for doing little demos and things like that without, spinning up your own server and all that.
Yep.
All right, are my slides back up?
Yep, I can see them.
I don't know why it keeps doing that. It just completely disappears whenever I'm trying to do this.
Yeah.
All right.
Got it.
All right. So we just talked about static websites, and I showed you all on that little demo that I added a little bit of JavaScript to just change the background color, but I wouldn't say it's any less of a static site after that. It's still, everyone's still going to see the same thing. They're going to hop onto the website. It's going to change the background color after 2 seconds. So it's still static. What about dynamic websites? Now those are modified. So when you request those, they're modified by the server. So you don't just get what was coded in the first place. And we'll talk about that here. So think about like a news website. When you go to that news website today, it's going to have different content than it will tomorrow, right? Because obviously they're going to have to update news articles and things because, well, new things are going to happen. So that would be a dynamic website. Or think about like a blog website. People add a blog post, and so okay, now that's changed, and someone might look at the blog website yesterday and see different content than they will today because it's dynamic. Somebody's entering in new information and updating the site from like a database. And so pages are generated as they're requested because you can't write HTML before knowing what the content is going to be. So the server has to say, okay, what are the latest blog posts? So let me go get those and then render those to the screen. And so an example is like a WordPress website. Those often let you update your content from like an interface. So if you want to add a new blog post, you can do that through their like little dashboard on there.
Hey, Rohit.
Yeah.
I got a question from the audience.
Okay.
Before you go too far, they were asking back when you were using the JSfiddle.net if you can do something as dynamic as, for example, changing the background color every 2 seconds.
Every 2 seconds? Yeah, you could do that. You could do pretty much whatever you want there. I don't remember how to do that with like the vanilla JavaScript, but no, you can do pretty much anything on there. But I'm not really gonna attempt to live code just yet. But no, you can definitely do that.
Got you. Yeah, that sounds good. That's the whole point of the web app, right? That's the difference between, you couldn't do that with just a regular static website. So yes, person in the audience, you can do that. All right, I'll let you get back to it.
Okay. So what happens here, and once again, this is also from adobe.com, this diagram. You make a request from the web browser, and so this time the application server is going to say, okay, well, this isn't just a regular old HTML page. This actually has some server-side code in it, and this code might be saying something like, get me the 20 latest blog posts or something. And so then the application server is going to get that. It's going to actually evaluate that and execute that code. So if it says, give me the latest 20 blog posts, it's going to actually go to your database and fetch those 20 blog posts. And then it's going to spit that back out as actual HTML. And then you're going to get a response to your web browser where it's going to display the HTML with the latest 20 blog posts. What about web apps though? So web apps are still websites. I don't want to make it seem like they're not websites. All web apps are websites, but not all websites are web apps. They give you a dynamic app-like experience. So when you're using an app on your phone, you don't usually tap on something and watch a white screen and wait for it to load, right? You get kind of an instant experience on there, and that's what web apps normally try to do. There's a two-way communication flow, so you can do things that change what you see, and so it's not just you getting whatever was coded in the first place, but you can interact with things a lot more as more of a user. And yeah, so now you're less of a viewer and more of a user. And there's these things called spas, and they're very, very common now. And they are, what SPA stands for is a single page application. So before, what we were looking at on the, when I showed you the world's first website, whenever you click on one of those links, it goes to a different page for that website. And when it goes to that page, it requests the file for that page. But on a single page application, there's only one file because the rest of it's done, all the rendering different pages and deciding what to show you is done through JavaScript. So I'm gonna try to get this demo open. It's real simple thing that I made yesterday. So it's simply a to-do app. Let me make sure it's actually showing. Okay, can we see the Chrome?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
And so
All
I
right.
think someone was having trouble with the result actually showing in theirs, but hopefully they were able to resolve that. It's just a matter of um, I don't know if it's something extra you did to get it to show over to the right.
Oh, what happened?
Well, I think we had a question that says they're trying to use the jsfiddle.net and they couldn't get it to show the result to show in the bottom right screen when they type their code on the left side. But it wasn't anything extra you did. It's supposed to just show up, right?
You want to hit run over here on the top left.
Ryan. Okay, I think that's what they were missing. Okay, sounds
Yeah,
good.
so after you enter in some if there's an error in the code, then it might not run either. But if there's not, and you hit run, it should show up here as long as you have your code in there.
Okay, perfect.
So web apps are a lot of times they're like tools or products that serve a single purpose. And here I made a little to-do list app, which are very common things for demoing. So I can say, take out the trash and then add that to this list. I can say, do the laundry, all things that I don't normally do enough. Um, so, I added those things and then we have these here. This is a lot different from the first website we were looking at, right? This is a lot more interactive. You're telling it, what you want to enter here, then it's displaying that here, it's saved. So that's a good bit different. And this HTML here that I have, none of it actually has this, right? Because I didn't know what I was going to type. So I didn't have this already ready. This appears once I type it and then hit enter. And all of that is done through this JavaScript down here. And all I'm saying with this JavaScript, I know it probably looks like a mess, but all I'm saying is, okay, so whatever the person types here, I want you to take that and I want you to create a list item here. And so I'm doing that here. And then I want you to take the text and add it to that list item. And I do that right here. And then I want you to append or insert that list item into this list. And this list is right here. And so that's all I'm doing there. And it's, there's no like waiting for a page to load or anything like that. It's instant. And you have two-way communication there. And then I also have these two links here, to do and about me. If I click the about me, I mean, the content just changed, right? But I didn't request a new file. There is no other file. It's just this one file. And then I switch back. So what happens when your whole app is like this? Well, that's when it's a single page application. Because you have one HTML file, and then the rest is all handled by by JavaScript. So if you say I want to go to such and such page, and you click on a link, it might it might use JavaScript to say, okay, they clicked on this link, show them this content, switch out the other content with this content. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm saying when they click on the about me, hide all the to-do stuff and show the about me. When they click on to-do, hide all the about me stuff and then show the to-do content. And so this is definitely more of a web app. Um,
Wow. So this is everything all in one page, and you called it a spa single page application?
that's right. So yeah, so it's a single page application because normally when the web started, you would have your website and then you would have, let's say you have the home page, an about me page. Let's say you have, I don't know, a page with directions on it. Maybe you're a business. You would have a different file on the server for each page. So if you visit the About Me link, you would request, okay, get me the file that has all that stuff on it. So that would be maybe like about.html. Or if you want to click on the directions link, it would say, okay, now get me the directions.html file. So every link, every page is a different file. Now in a single page app, you only have one page. Now you may see the URL in the window in the address bar change, but you still only have one page. And the JavaScript just says, okay, well, they clicked on this link. Why don't we pretend like they visited another file? Why don't we just, instead of making them load a whole new page and wait and look at a white screen loading or whatever, why don't we just switch out the content based on what link they clicked? And so
That
that's how single page applications kind of work. And that's how they're able to make it more of an instant experience.
wonderful. So I learned something today. Spa is not just where I go to get my toes done. I have
That,
COVID feet right now, by the way, so I really need to go get them done somewhere. But this spa is not that spa. Thank you so much. All right, go ahead.
no, yeah, this spa is not that spa. And so another thing you can do there is, normally you have to wait and watch the page reload, the website reload whenever you go to a new page. But if you're just switching it out with JavaScript, that means you can just show like a loading indicator or something while data is being fetched. So really, what's happening is the view changes, and data is fetched, and then wherever the data needs to go to be shown, that's done. So it's very, very common now, and you'll notice it on a lot of things you use, and you may not think about it, um, but that's definitely something that's becoming a lot more common, single page applications.
Yeah, and you probably will touch on this, but I think what that boils down to for some people who aren't as familiar is that this is a lot quicker, right? Because you don't have to load so many different types of pages and get data from different places. It's all right there. So those of you out there, you have slower websites. You may use the regular type of HTML. That was the big craze with web apps and JavaScript is, hey, we can speed this up. And I think, that's why it's taken off so much. But I'll give it back to you.
Yeah. It's definitely a big thing, and it has its own drawbacks because, and I guess I'll touch on it, but it's like, JavaScript, you're loading an application. If it's an application in the web browser, and you have to download that, and the bigger it becomes, the longer it might take somebody to load that. Whereas with a static website, it's easy to load that quickly, even on like a not so great of a connection. Um, let's Trying to struggle with this slide screen sharing again. All right, so we touched on single page applications. And this is just a few screenshots. You have Twitter right there on the top left, Gmail, Slack. Some of these you may be familiar with, some you may not, but they're very, very common and popular single page apps. When you click around on those, you normally don't get taken to like a new, you normally don't have to reload the page or anything like that. Some key differences: SEO is a lot easier on static sites, and SEO stands for search engine optimization. So if you want your website to rank higher on Google when people search for, whatever, then you definitely want to have good SEO. And it's tougher on static sites because if it's all JavaScript, then it's a lot harder for the web crawlers, which web crawlers are what search engines use to crawl websites and basically, see what the content is like, what keywords are on there. And so it's a lot harder for those to know what's on the website if it has to wait for JavaScript to load, because it's probably not going to wait for the JavaScript to load. So it's a lot easier with static sites where everything is already there. Yeah, well, it's also easier with dynamic websites, but with single page applications, it's where it gets pretty tough. So if you really care about SEO, then you just got to be careful there. Web apps, you get a fluid app-like experience. Static websites, not so much. But static websites are a little less complicated to build. With single-page applications, with web apps, you have to know a good bit of programming, depending on how deep you're going. But web apps also offer features. There's more things to do. It's not just, getting information. And at the end of the day, neither is inherently better. It's really all about what you're trying to do. Static websites are what I would use if your content's not really going to change regularly. Dynamic websites I would use when your content is going to change regularly. So if you're doing a blog, you're probably going to be making new blog posts every now and then. So that's where a dynamic website comes into play. Now, web apps I would use if you're providing some kind of product like Gmail or Slack or Twitter, something where the person's using a tool really. And so it's because a web app at the end of the day is software that's running in your browser. There's a few learning resources I included on here. For HTML, a link to Free Code Camp, which is a great free website. For CSS, which is the styling, added a link to mozilla.org. And then for JavaScript, a website I really like called javascript.info that should show you stuff for beginners and then also some advanced stuff on there. And that's pretty much all I've got.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. We have some questions, and I think this brings up a good point, is that we have a lot of people who are working and want to, create their own app or their own product, and they're trying to decide, okay, what's the best way to go. A lot of times we refer them to, quick and easy websites like, Squarespace or something like Wix or Weebly, or even WordPress, which gives a little bit more flexibility with plugins. But this is just on another scale. Uh, Whereas those are, I guess you would call those content management type websites.
Hmm.
These are more direct coding, so if you're not, if you are more tech savvy, this is probably the way you want to go in terms of having more, like you say, more dynamics, and being able to scale and optimize. For those of you who do have startup companies and you want to be able to, say, hey, let's, build this is an option for you, especially if you want to do something like an app, like you pointed out. You pointed out the Google, the Gmail, Twitter, all of those are web apps, and that under the hood. So would you say under the hood, they're using JavaScript more than likely for that, or?
Oh yeah, more than likely they're using JavaScript. There are some pushes out there to get some more programming languages out on the web, but right now it's all JavaScript for the most part.
So that you may, you hear it, folks. Those of you learning how to code, JavaScript might be a way to go. I'm personally, I push for Python, but I'm not doing a presentation. But he's telling you most of the things that you use today are using JavaScript. So for those of you who want to learn, definitely check that out. So I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna have my video on too, so it won't just look creepy, like it's just me, like it's just your slides. And if you want to, you can turn your I guess you can stop sharing your screen maybe, unless you want to refer back to something. um okay, hey everybody. Make sure I look okay. All right. All right, so now we have a couple of questions here. Now I want to just point something out. You said you had a BA in English. Can you talk a little bit about how you went from English to doing JavaScript programming and being a lead UI engineer?
Okay, so I started pursuing a computer science degree when I went to state. But honestly, I realized, look, this math is going to take my GPA all the way down. So, because math was not my strong suit. And so I decided to switch to something that I really enjoyed and was great at, So I switched to English with a focus on creative writing. But after I graduated, I was just working at my parents' liquor store because it's not exactly easy to come out of college and be like, okay, wow, got my BA in English. The job market's looking really great. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not easy. I mean, it's not easy for any field right now, anyways. But yeah, so after that, I was just working at the liquor store, but I still had an interest in coding. So it wasn't like just because I got one degree that was all I cared about. So I still did that on the side, and my dad let me actually have my laptop at work, and so I would start making a little portfolio of little websites. I made like a little website that would tell you where all the closest coffee shops are, and just kind of did that. Then started doing a little bit of networking. Went to a local event here. Do you know about? I'm sure you do. The startup weekend that they would have.
Yep.
I went to that. I
Big
think
stars.
2015, and then I had made business cards, and then that led to getting an interview for an ad agency, and then I started working at an ad agency making websites, and then from there went to another ad agency after that. And I started to realize I really would rather make applications and apps rather than websites, which that's not a knock on websites or making them, but for me personally, that's where I wanted to be. And so, in 2017, I got a job at school status, which is where I work now, and that is what I've been doing. And so, it's a very non-traditional path I went on, I think, but also I think maybe I'm living proof that you don't have to have a certain degree. I mean, you don't have to have a degree to get into this field. You have to work hard. You have to teach yourself You have to find the resources to teach yourself with, and thankfully there's plenty of those online.
Yeah.
So doing that and having something to show, and there's resources online and there's resources here. We have the Coding Academy, which has been really, really great. So, teaching yourself, making things that you can show people, and doing a little bit of networking, I think that can lead to great things.
I love that because a lot of people think, hey, if I know how to code, that's all I need, get my head down. But as a freelancer, as I guess you kind of start out as freelance, you would say, right? You need to know how to network. You need to know how to present yourself and market yourself. And those are some key skills that set the lower end from the high bar people. So I really love that. So now you mentioned you started working with the JavaScript. You were working with your dad, and then you started working for the ad agency. And you just kind of asked around, hey, anybody need any help? What specific types of JavaScript languages were you working with? And you can kind of describe the differences between some of the popular ones out there right now.
Okay, uh, so the language is JavaScript, but what we use at work is so JavaScript has a bunch of libraries which are basically packages that provide tools to make certain things easier. And for single page applications, um, or just interactive apps in general on the web, React is very, very popular right now. It's a library. It's called a view library because it's a it's a library that offers tools that allow um, developers to make web apps that update what you see instantly whenever some data changes. So you can easily say, okay, well, they changed what their name was, so let's instantly update the view to reflect that. So let's change their wherever we show their name, let's change that. So React is what I've really enjoyed working with, and it's a that's a whole world right there. So there's a lot to learn. So it's not just learn JavaScript, but if you start following some sort of framework or library, you have to learn that entire world as well. Um, One of the earlier ones I used was called Angular, and basically the big thing there was just it was called two-way data binding. So the data would change, for example, as the user entered their name. The variable that stores their name would change at the same time. Then there's another one called Vue, which I haven't really used, but those are the three really big players right now: Vue, Angular, and React. But um, those aren't necessary to use. They just make it a lot easier.
And just for the folks who may not be familiar, Vue, spelled VUE, right?
That's right.
React is just REACT, in case you're Googling this. And Angular is just the regular Angular, right? ANG.
Angular. That's right. Angular.
Yeah,
And even though JavaScript is primarily for the web, React also has a uh, a package called React Native, and that lets you use JavaScript to make native feeling phone applications.
gotcha. And if I'm not mistaken, it's you can actually develop with React Native for both Android and iPhone, correct?
That's correct. That's what I've done at work, and you can get it to feel just like it was built using Objective C or Java or whatever you would normally use for native iPhone and Android development, and you can ship it to the store, and it just feels like any other app would.
Got you. And I know you mentioned, your current role at school status. If you tell a little bit more right now, of course, all of our students and parents are going through, quite the challenge with schools and, teaching their kids and doing virtual learning. What role or part does your company play in that? I'm just curious.
Um, so what we offer is, first of all, we do offer data. So we let educators, teachers, administrators keep track of student data. And we just recently released a feature called quarantine tracking to kind of keep track of, kind of trace, kind of like a contact, like a tracing thing for who's sick, who might be in quarantine, what student is in quarantine right now, and kind of, generate like a list of this is the classes, this is the people they're in classes with, and things like that. And so I think that's been helpful for people. But one big thing we do is we're a communications platform. So we give teachers access to our platform to send texts through us, send emails through us, and call through us while masking their number. And they're able to, keep in touch with parents and let them know like certain announcements, like, oh, school's gonna be closed, or this is happening, that's happening. So that's, I think having them stay in touch is really important.
Yeah, no doubt. I know. What is is there a website for that, just in case people are interested?
Schoolstatus.com is our like landing page,
Gotcha.
but the our actual application is subscription based, so you can actually access the application without having like your district subscribe to it.
Nice. I am learning so much today. I am taking notes. You all see these notes? I'm taking notes. All right. Wonderful, wonderful. So I want to go back to what you were talking about with JavaScript real quickly here. Now you mentioned if someone were doing a blog post, they probably would want to use a more dynamic, web app, for example, using JavaScript as opposed to like the static, web pages in HTML. And so I'm curious, you mentioned, what if you have several blog posts? What if someone is doing like an order of hundreds of blog posts, per week? What do you have to say about using JavaScript in terms of optimizing and balancing, a whole lot of content, like just lots and lots.
Honestly, so for blog posts, I would just, if you're primarily just doing blog posts, I wouldn't even make it a web app personally. I would use something like WordPress, or like you mentioned earlier, content management system, which those basically allow you to have some sort of dashboard that you'll enter in. Like if you want to make a new blog post, you'll go into the dashboard and you'll put in the title, you'll put in the content for that post, and then that gets added to the database. And so, the HTML, the surrounding HTML stays the same. That's called your template. But inside of there will be the code that says, okay, so get the latest blog post. And so it'll do that and get the latest blog post for you. I think that's what I would stick to
Okay.
for something like that. I think it's easy for most people, but you can use JavaScript as well for that sort of thing.
In terms of having a lot of data, like I guess in my world with artificial intelligence, we have so much, like thousands and thousands and thousands, sometimes millions, multi-millions of images, text. We're doing things like OCR or recognizing objects in video. What do you have to say as far as how JavaScript handles like lots of a big volume of data at once or large databases?
Gotcha. It handles it just fine. Like I've never had any issues with it. Of course, you don't want to load all of it at once, most normally. But one thing you want to do is paginate data like that if you can. If it's like a collection of blog posts, instead of fetching all of them at once, which is going to take, it might take a little while, and it might even, depending on how many you're fetching at once, it might even like kind of hurt the server a little bit. So I would like segment those out and have like a certain number on page one, a certain number on page two, a certain number on page three. But um, no, it handles all of that just fine, because all it's doing is just fetching from the database.
Got you. Speaking of artificial intelligence, uh, are there any libraries out there you'd recommend for people to do different types of, machine learning with JavaScript, or recognizing things, finding patterns, things like that?
Um, so disappointingly, I haven't really messed with that a whole lot, but I know that there is a library called TensorFlow.js, and that's the main one for machine learning on the web with JavaScript.
Yeah, TensorFlow is a big one that we use on the Python side. So I didn't even know they had a JavaScript version. So that's good to know.
I definitely want to learn more of how to do that sort of thing, like how to create my own model and whatnot. But it's that kind of stuff is a little intimidating, but it's also opening up a lot of whole new doors, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think I saw that you mentioned the CSS. How much emphasis would you put on CSS when working with JavaScript, and maybe some of the other tools that may help people learn about the CSS side as well?
Um, if you're trying to be a front end developer, I would put a lot of emphasis on CSS, and because a lot of these jobs, you're going to get something from a designer, and then you're going to have to make it look like what the designer handed you, and you can't really do that without CSS because that's what you use to style everything. I would I would put a pretty big focus on it, along with the JavaScript.
Okay. And I know you had some resources, and I want to make sure you share those one more time before we hop off. I got one more question for you though.
Mhm.
What would you say the difference between, you mentioned people and designers will create how they want the website to look or how they want the app to look, and then they hand that off to the developer, right? The front end developer who's going to connect all that to the what's under the hood, which usually that's the back end developer that does that type of thing, or what we call a full stack developer that kind of ideally encompasses all of those pieces. Um, so what do you call that? I know I've heard it called wireframe. I've heard it called a mock-up. Is there a difference, and what is the difference between that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Difference between
Like a wireframe versus a mock-up?
oh
Uh,
yeah, so as far as a wireframe goes, that's like the first thing a designer normally gives you to say, okay, this is where so there's no real detail on it. It's a wireframe. It's just a bunch of, lines. There's no colors or anything like that. It's just like kind of laying out, this is where the header is going to be. This is where we're going to have this hero image. This is where we're going to have it's like an initial sketch basically, and then the mock-up is where you get like the final thing, and so you can see what it looks like. You can see the actual design. They basically handed you a picture of a web page almost. So that's the design. That's the mock-up.
Gotcha. So as a UI engineer, you take that picture of the mock-up that has been drafted up from a wireframe that someone kind of came up with how they want everything to flow, and you recreate that mock-up essentially with CSS and JavaScript.
That's right. Normally that's what you do, but sometimes you don't have a designer. We don't actually have an in-house, person to design. So sometimes we have to kind of figure out the UI and then kind of get feedback on there, and figure it out. Like, so I think having some knowledge of UX and UI is very important for a front end developer. But generally, designers go to school and they do their thing. So it's good to have a designer. But ideally, yeah, you get the design from an actual designer, and then you, as the developer, make that happen on the screen.
Gotcha. And UI, we're mentioning user interface, and UX, it stands for user experience here. And it's interesting because you as a engineer, you're almost like the artist, right? You're recreating these beautiful designs and pictures that you're getting from a designer or that someone else is creating, or you may be creating yourself. So a lot of times they try to pigeonhole us engineers, but we're pretty creative as well. And so wonderful, wonderful. So I think those are all the questions I
I
have.
think
Anyone has any additional ones, you can feel free to put them in the QA. But um, oh wait, actually, we do have one more question. This will be our last question. Then it says, okay, the application at your job is it only for schools, or is it for any group that can send out communications like a church group or other large group?
we're specifically for schools and districts.
Okay.
So no, we don't really. We just serve educators.
Okay. Wonderful. Got it. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Rohit. This has been quite a learning workshop for me. And I thank you for coming on, for volunteering your time. How can people reach out to you if they want to ask questions, or how can they follow you? Any information like that you want to provide?
You can follow me on. You can find me on Twitter at Rohit Codes. You can email me if you want at rohitsharma@hey.com. Um, my LinkedIn is Rohit Codes. I'm not sure what other contact info to give out, but yeah, if anyone wants to reach out to me, feel free to.
Got it. And if you want to, show, we will have the slides available for you all as well. We'll have those resources that Rohit mentioned, those links and things. We'll be providing those. And I will say thank you much for joining. Thanks to everybody who's out there, whether you're streaming, whether you're watching this again after recording on YouTube or Facebook or what have you. We appreciate you. We love providing content like this to people to introduce you to technology, different types of technology. Stay tuned. The Bean Path is we have these every month, usually on the second Saturday. If you would, feel free to sign up for a one-on-one tech office hour session. Our experts will be around for the next couple of hours answering questions and talking to people one-on-one about any ideas you have, and you need help with your tech startup. If you have questions about today's presentation, you want to learn about things, how to fix computers and things like that, we have experts. And stay tuned. We have an anniversary event. The Bean Path is turning 2 years old, and so we'll have our normal tech office hours virtually again in October on the second Saturday. But we will also have an anniversary event on October 17th, the third Saturday in October. Stay tuned. We'll be providing details about that. That'll be a little bit something for people who want to come in person in a very COVID safe way. And also we have a whole production we're going to provide for you all virtually. So don't worry if you can't meet us in person, if you're not in the Jackson area, or if you're, very want to be extra cautious about COVID. We have something for everybody. We'll be giving giveaways. So please stay tuned. Follow us at the Bean Path. You can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, or check out our website, thebeanpath.org. Check out the merch. We got plenty. And also make sure you sign up for our newsletter. Thank you all so much. We will post everything after, and see you later. Have a good one.